Hi, sixth grade families. I'm Elizabeth. I have met all of you, I think, at this point, and many of you I've known for a long time. I wanted to check in with you all about our health classes, and I thought maybe doing a video instead of a letter, because you get lots of those from the school in your emails, might be more interesting. Or something different. I got to see a lot of you on our potluck evening, which was really great. And it was nice to hear some of your questions, get some of your feedback. I know a lot of our conversation had to do with technology and the way that the kids in this particular class, but also sort of adolescents in general, are using technology. So that was a great discussion. I am sending notes about that, but I also have been in with the class several times since then, and I just kind of wanted to tell you some of what we've been doing in class. Some of you have heard some of this, but for those of you who weren't at that meeting, I can give you some insight into our discussions. We tend to sit at the beginning of our time together. So we sit and we work on body and posture and breathing. We try to ground, working on some strategies for breathing and how to start noticing their bodies and what their bodies are doing, where they might feel sensation in their body, focusing on their breath, how to get themselves into a present orienting place. We orient to the space when we're in the classroom. We generally sit in a circle unless I'm writing something on the board, which is not very often. We have talked about the changes in puberty. A lot of it was review from last year, but not everybody was with us last year. So we talked about social, physical, emotional, and intellectual changes that happen during puberty. 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, all the way through. Of course, they're often most interested in the body changes and the emotional changes. They love the idea of being on a roller coaster. We looked at a book that is relatively outdated, but it's actually a fun book to look at. It's called What's Happening to Me, and it deals with all of the puberty stuff, from body changes and all the physical changes to the emotional changes and relationship changes. And we also analyzed the book critically to look at what was missing, because there's a lot in there. There's not a lot in there about the LGBTQ community. There's not a lot of diversity in the book. And so we talked about, like, if we were making this book now, what would we add? And that was a really great discussion. A lot of it was fun for them because there's anatomy pictures and cartoon, sort of that Schoolhouse Rock style animated drawings that were fun to look at, but also allowed us to have serious discussions while enjoying sort of the silliness of the illustrations. We have gotten into a lot of their questions. They have a lot of questions. I'm actually looking at them right now. A lot of the questions that they have involve, how old should I be when? And then following that comes, how old should I be when I start dating? How old should I be when I first have sex? How old should I be when I first start thinking about drugs? They have a lot of questions about drugs. There's a lot of questions about vaping, a lot of questions about marijuana, a lot of questions about drinking. There's a lot of, why is it okay for adults to do something that it's not okay for us to do kinds of conversations. We talk a lot about brain development and the ways that substances and even decision making is very different for an adolescent brain than it is for an adult brain, and the impact of those things on an adolescent brain and a growing brain. We've talked about menstruation a lot. We've talked about birth. They're very interested in birth and breastfeeding and all of those, like, having babies related topics. And I will continue to be with them. I try to get in there at least once a week, and Emily and I are planning some stuff for the intensives week, which will be fun. I'll get extra time with them. So that's really mostly what we've talked about. They have a lot of questions. They want to know why all of this is happening to them. A lot of curiosity about, like, what do I do now that my relationship is changing with my parents? Sometimes I don't feel like being hugged, but I used to, but sometimes I want to, and I don't know how to ask for that. And sometimes I want my parents to post a picture of me on Instagram, and sometimes I really don't want my parents to do that, and they do it anyway. And So there's lots of questions of that sort of like having their feet in both that beautiful place of one foot in really childhood and one foot in adolescence. And sometimes what we talk about is, why would you want to be able to do everything at 12 or 11 or 13 that you would be able to do when you're 18? And what about that idea of stepping into things, from technology to sexual relationships to dating to drugs to all of that stuff? But that, you know, some of the joy of growing up is being able to be really little and playful and crawl into your parents' bed when you're 11 or 12 and do some things that are more mature and be told that it's okay to wait until you do some of those things until you're 18 or 17 or 16. And then it gives you something to look forward to. So all of these are the discussions that we're having. I love your kids. I love being in there with them. You all hopefully have my email address. If not, it is ecolemel, Koelmel, at woodstockdayschool.org. And you can write to me anytime. And I think that's about it. Thank you for sharing your children with me, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Bye.